So before the break, I explained it database part, network part, how they link to how they injected into repository. I didn't explain repository itself, so it is planned for after the break, this part. And also I planned to change scope of the update task. Ideally, we would also probably also planned to start application with refresh. So after our app is started, it is refreshing database. If it is online, otherwise it will be thrown exception code and log it. And also it's good to have clear buttons to clear database for debugging purpose in order to see that it's actually clearing, that it is actually refreshing. So a refresh button, it is probably for future, or if we have time, we'll not refresh. A clear button is probably either for future, or we can do it in class if we have time left. So first thing is to go through repository implementation. As you see, in most cases, queries that we have are just data conversion, and after calling either API functions or DAO functions. Get all restaurants flow. We want flow of list of restaurants, but database provides different type local restaurants, so we need to convert it. So restaurant DAO get all restaurant flow. I will be flow of a list of local restaurant. So I need to use map function that is converting data into flow. Parameter is picket the data, which is list of local restaurants, and I need to convert it. So I apply map function of a list. Parameter is lambda function that is taking the data and returning converted data. It is default parameter of lambda function. I could say restaurant, arrow, restaurant, dot to restaurant, or some other letter. But shorter it will be it. To restaurant, it's a function, extension function defined here for local restaurant. As you see, conversion is just constructor call. This refers to local restaurant object because this extension function is defined for and acted as it belongs to local restaurant. And I have a backward conversion, remote restaurant to local restaurant. So let's go back. So this function is applied to every element in the list. And flow on is making this task, conversion task, to be executed on dispatchers IO. So as input output task. Next, get restaurant by ID. I have a conversion. First, I'm switching to dispatchers IO because this function is called in view model context, but now we switch it to view model context without specification of dispatcher. Now we specified view model scope, call it in view model scope, without specification of context, which by default would be GUI context, main context. Am I right? Yeah. And I'm switching to dispatchers IO, and DAO will give us restaurant by ID, which is local restaurant type, and we convert to restaurant. And since return type could be null, right? I'm using question mark operator because this function should not be called on null, as it will cause null pointer exception here. We cannot say null.id, right? How question mark works, it calls this function, but it's not null, and if this function null, just do not call it, everything becomes null. So this function will return nullable type. That would be, null will be returned when this function returns null, and this function will return null when ID is not found in the database. Next, toggle is favorite by ID. It is just changing context and calling down. Next, set is favorite by ID, as you see, changing context and calling down the same. No data conversion. Refresh restaurants is by far the most interesting part of this repository. What is interesting about it is async call. Why do we need it? We don't. It's a demo. Logically, when we ask for the data from network, at the same time we could do local database query to retrieve what is the favorite, what are the favorites. And when we know both, we can do update. So this is showing how to start task and keep doing something else. We already know how to do it in view model scope, and in this case I'm in coroutine scope. So this is how to do it in coroutine. Start something else while you're doing, keep doing this stuff. So async is starting given task in lambda function, and it returns immediately. So I will reach this point before the task is over. How it is handled? A return type of async is not return type of this database query. A return type is deferred wrapper around return type of this piece. So what it is? Get all restaurants and I'm converting to local restaurant. From where? From API. Right? So this part is getting a list of restaurants from web, and it is converting this to local restaurant type because it's about to be inserted into local database. This task is done asynchronously. It means before it is finished, we are already here doing database query. Get IDs of favorite restaurants. Okay. So technically two things are happening at the same time. We are asking, give us data from the network and converting this data to local restaurant type because we will insert it to the database. Next. And getting list of integers, and integer is ID of restaurants that are favorite. Next, in order to insert it as a list, I decided, okay, let's convert it to list of is favorite objects. Because if I have a list of int, I cannot insert it in one step. It is a technological issue, because how would I say how would I set specific query that would be set is favorite is true when element in the list? This is logically impossible. So just because I want to have it in one step, I'm doing transformation of the list. I had a list of integer, but now I want to have a list of is favorites because I can do this update in one step. Map ID is favorite, and how do I conversion? I'm calling constructor of the object is favorite, right? On every element of the list, which is list of integers. and I will create a list of isFavorite. So this is done at the same time as asynchronous task. But after this, I will have to wait till I get the data from network, because I shouldn't delete local data till I get new one, right? What if new doesn't come? At least I have a local. So RestaurantsAwait, see this one. Await, it's a method of deferred. How it works? When task is finished, data is received in deferred, await will return it. But before that, it will just stuck. It's just waiting. So at this moment, I'm waiting till this task has finished. Okay. Where? I'm waiting here. So maybe it will be finished even before that, right? We don't really know. But it guarantees that we will have a list of restaurants at this moment. Right. So here's the list of restaurants. I call refresh restaurants. Remember that function in DAO, it will wipe off database and it will insert this list. And it's fine because I already retrieved IDs of favorite restaurants. So next update is favorite, and this is a list of favorites. So I can do it in one step if I have isFavorite objects. Questions? So what did we learn? We learned a trick how to start independent task within coroutine context. So coroutine context itself is independent task, right? And this is another independent task if I want to do something in parallel with the stuff inside of the coroutine. Okay? So we use await for it. So again, it is not really necessary. I could do it in sequence. It would be maybe a fraction of a second longer, but I wouldn't be able to explain this topic if I don't have it here in the code. Okay. So again, like in many examples, the user technique is not strictly necessary, but it's necessary for explaining extra topic. And in this case, using async call. Right. So what do we have? As already mentioned, this refresh is not called at all because I removed code that's supposed to call it in Work Manager. I removed everything related to Work Manager. So this refresh will be called only when I click refresh button. No, otherwise it won't. So maybe let's try to fix that issue first. So when program starts, it will call refresh. Otherwise, we see empty screen. It's not good. No, if we run this before, it will show data from the database. It's not empty screen. So if I click run, it will be data from the database. But when it starts first time, it will be empty screen. So this is data from the database that was downloaded last time when I clicked refresh button. So let's try to fix this issue. So when program starts, it will indeed call refresh. So remember that we have a magic class, call it app restaurant application. And previously, if you remember, we had a you do remember onCreate method inside of this, right? So that onCreate method was called when restaurant object, this application object is created, and we need to initialize something global, right? So it's a good onCreate function in application. It's a good candidate to refresh because this is what happens first. A system is calling creating application class and on create, okay, let's call refresh, why not? So let's override refresh, not override refresh, or override on create. It calls superclass on create and start refresh task. Remember that refresh is suspend function. We cannot really call it directly. We have to create coroutine context in order to call refresh, because it's suspend function. So if I remember correctly, last time when I did this trick for previous code, I used main scope. Let's try. Yay! It still works. A main scope launch. And now, where would I get repository? This is another issue, right? I need to get repository in order to call refresh function of that repository. Since I cannot inject it here, no, it doesn't work. Inject here. It's not injectable into parameter of Hilt Android app. I can try to inject it as data, inject it as a field. It's called field injection. So far we tried only constructor injection. It's injection into constructor parameter for constructor call. And what I'm trying to do is to do field injection. Field injection is injection into the data field of an object. And it is used when constructor injection is impossible. For some reason, like we can do field injection into activity, for example, because we don't call constructor of activity directly. The same about fragments. No, in fragments we can call constructor of fragments, so it's not the case. For activity it is the case. How it is? We declare the variable let's call it repository. Val, I think it's supposed to be var for injection. So let's try val, and if it doesn't do, we will change it to var. A repository, and call it restaurant repository. And inject. I think I did it last time something like this and it was working. If it doesn't, we will find a way to fix it. A repository, maybe it's val. Okay, field initializer must be initialized to be abstract. Add initializer, field inject, public final repository. It's supposed to be var. Okay. Let's try again. Late init. Add late init modifier. Okay, let's see. Let's see if it. And I need to call repository refresh. Repository refresh restaurants. In order to see that it's actually refreshing, I need to clean database, right? Otherwise, how would I know that it's refreshing? So I don't have a clean button, although it would be nice to have it, but I don't have it right now. So let's uninstall the app. This will take care of cleaning database. No, it doesn't do it this way. I have to open it on the list of the apps. Not this one. It's totally wrong idea. I think it is this one, restaurant list. And I do uninstall. Okay. And now when I run it, it should be empty because it will be fresh database. Oh no, it will be this one. Ouch. So I don't really know if this part worked. So I will, I will comment it out, repeat the stuff, I repeat this manipulation. If I see empty list, it means it's clean. After this, I will remove this stuff and run it again. If I don't see empty list, it means this trick worked. So let's repeat this idea. I will stop it. First, I want to get rid of this from background task. Okay, let's. Oh. Okay, I think I kind of. Oh yeah, here it is. Here it is. Uninstall. Okay. So let's run it. Empty list. Okay. And now let's stop it. Remove command here. And run it again. And if I see the list, it means the trick did work. The trick was working, right? So, ta-da! So, now the application is refreshing the database when it is started. And what did we learn? We learned about field injection because we didn't use it before. And this also provides extra information, so it's a learning experience. So so far we had constructor injection, and this is a field injection. Field injection is not recommended. In general, it is recommended only for the cases where constructor injection is not possible, like here. So this is field injection. Restriction for field injection parameters that we inject must be public. So this is limitation of Hilt framework. All right. So what did they do? Made the application. The list is made the refresh on start, right? By the way, the original code had something totally strange. It was refreshing when you go to the list, which is strange. Okay, whatever. But this is refreshing on start. So refresh on application start. Commit, and I will push it to GitHub, so it will be there. Next, a next step is to edit repository to make refresh button work in global scope. This is definitely global scope. Main scope is global scope, just a different name, or something really similar to that. But when I call launch in view model, it becomes view model scope. Right? So let's do that. I already know the trick in product list. So I will reapply the logic from the product list. So let's open product list repository and see how it was implemented. So I have a constructor that it will receive parameters that I injected. But I also have external scope and dispatcher given as extra parameters. So in my case, I will have 4 parameters because I will have a DAO and I will have API. Okay. And these 2. By the way, this manipulation is copy-paste from Google website, so I prefer to do exactly the same pattern. And it is recommendation for the case that this is not hard-coded because when we test, we can change scope. like in automatic tests, in scope and dispatcher. So let's do so. I'm going to my restaurant repository, and I have API DAO, right? And I will add these two. Copy, paste. And immediately you see it's an issue because these two are not injectable. So in order to make injection work, again, I need to create constructor that receives injectable parameters, and I need to move this inject on top of this constructor. So these two pieces, copy, go here. Next, I will have a constructor call. Oops. Like this, right? Because now it is just parameter. These pieces are creating data fields, but this constructor will call given constructor, right? This constructor will create data fields. So I remove private. So let's align it nicely. So what happens next? I call constructor from the above, right? So how to call constructor from constructor? This, I pass restaurant API, I pass restaurant DAO, and two other things that would be by default global scope and dispatchers IO. Copy. Paste. Global scope and dispatchers IO. Unhappy says delegate coroutine API, blah blah blah. You need to use global scope. Carefully. Why? Because when we start global task, it will stay global. It will not die when we navigate. This is actually our goal, right? So we can say we can add delegate API on top, like you see it delegates opt-in, delegates coroutines API, just to get rid of this warning. I think we can put it on top of singleton, just to get rid of this warning. Next, the purpose of this constructor is to make an injection. So this inject goes here. I could leave keyword constructor here, and it's absolutely 100% fine. But you see, this keyword is not necessary. This keyword constructor is implied, so we don't have to write it. Is implied at this point, so we don't have to write it. Okay. So constructor with two parameters will be used for injection, and this is a primary constructor that is called from this constructor. Now let's look through the code and see that we use it right away. So you see that dispatches IO now is the parameter which is coroutine dispatcher. So instead of hard coding it here, I need to use word dispatcher, right? So dispatcher, this one, and it is still dispatchers IO by default. So this is becomes dispatcher. This becomes dispatcher. This part becomes dispatcher. this dispatcher. Okay. Now the goal is to make this global. How did I do it? Let's see. It was used for insert delete product. External scope launch on dispatcher this task. So this is how it was done. So this is a task. So instead of with context, I have external scope dot launch in front of it, right? So let's do that. External scope launch. Paste. No, something is broken. So refresh restaurants. Job is a type of overwritten. No, it's simpler. Issue is that it's not assignment, it is curly brace. Okay. It is curly brace of this thing. Remember this, you see? It is not assigned, it is in curly brace of it. Why it is in... I commented out it for some reason. Why is it commented out? Is it commented out in your code? I doubt. I think it is by accident. So let's see. Yeah, it's by accident. I don't know, I pressed something on the keyboard and it commented out. Okay, so external scope launch. This is function and this is class variable, closing curly brackets, curly brace. Okay, so for refresh restaurants, I'm using external scope, which is global scope. Launch using dispatcher, which is dispatcher IO, and this is task. So hopefully I achieve it switching to global scope of refresh task. So let me reformat this file. So refactor. No, it is in code. Reformat file, whole file, here it is. Make it prettier. All right. So let's see if it's working. And now, since the program is starting right away, I don't really know if refresh button is working, right? So I have opposite issue. So now I'm going back to my restaurant app and I put comment here because I want to check refresh button. And next, because now I'm checking. No, it's not necessary because this is I edited this part, right? So if this still working, I don't need to press refresh button, right? What I need is to clean database. Right now, so when program starts, it will call refresh, and if I see the list, it means it is refreshed. Which is bad, I need to make probably clear button. Okay, we'll see. But first, let's do it bad way. looks like RestaurantsApp. Uninstall. RestaurantsApp, do you want to uninstall? Yes. Let's run it. Yeah, it did it. Okay. So refresh worked after editing it. And now let me commit it. What did I do? Changed the scope of refresh, or made the refresh global scope. Okay. Made the refresh scope global. Made the refresh scope global. Commit. And this will go to GitHub. So I push it, the code that I made, to GitHub. Next, maybe it's good to insert clean button for testing of reload. Another refresh. Another way to do it, which is not great because you cannot do it at home, because you don't have access to the data. But let's do for fun, is to open Firebase. Get started. RestaurantsApp. Real-time database. Restaurant. Title Alfredo dishes, it is the first. And let's change it. Alfredo's pasta. Okay. Pasta. Okay, Alfredo's pasta. What does it say? Refresh. This is supposed to go to Alfredo's pasta if I refresh it. Yay! Alfredo's pasta. So it indeed refreshed, but you cannot check it this way by changing data, obviously, right? So it's better just to click create extra button, which is clear for the purpose that we see that it is indeed refreshing, right? So how to implement it? This piece is in actions, I believe, and we just need to create another icon with another Lambda function call that will eventually reach view model, and view model will eventually reach clear method of repository. So let's check if our repository has a method clear database. Also, there are some unversioned files, so let's commit it. Unversioned. It's a product list. Okay, fine. How about here? What did I push to product list? Nothing special, because I enroll it change. So that is no big deal. Changes. So main, push. So let's go to repository and see if we have a clear method in the repository. Because if we don't have such method, we cannot call it. We have to implement it. So restaurant repository, refresh restaurants, but there is no method clear database, right? So we need to create it. Suspend function clear database. And now I created a method in interface it means I broke restaurant repository implementation because it doesn't have such method. So I need to implement it, right, in order to fix it. So implement missing member clear database. So I'm here. Override suspend function clear database. So maybe since it's database operation that I want to finish, so let's do the same. External scope launch dispatcher, and in the dispatcher, in this launch, I will call clear the table, right, from the DAO. So let's try. External scope launch. And in that, oops, in this scope, I do restaurants DAO. And what kind of methods it provides? Delete all restaurants, right? This is clear database. Clear database, restaurant DAO, delete all restaurants. So I created function clear database. Now we need to call it from view model, right? So let's do so. Remember that repository is injected. Oh no, repository is not injected into this list. Repository is not injected into a view model of this list. What was injected? Use cases. Okay. If we open a view model of the list, we will see that it receives injection of use cases. Maybe I should create use case, clear database, or clear list. Let's do. I'm talking about, you see, domain contains a reload use case. I'll just create clear use case. Okay, clear use case. Okay. So the same idea, right? Instead of reload, it will be clear use case, inject constructor, repository, and on invoke, it will call clear database. So what I will do copy, I will do paste, and I call this clear use case. Clear use case. And I added additional file, constructor restaurant repository, inject invoke. Instead of refresh, it is clear database. All right. And now I do have clear use case, and I need to inject it into view model like I injected other use cases. So here's repository view model, list view model. Wait this. A list view model, you see, it is injecting reload use case. So let's add clear use case. Clear use case. Okay. So we will add clear button somewhere. Okay. And this button is in GUI, right? Our use case is in view model. Somehow I need a function in view model that will call use case, right? So I need some function similar to reload, but it will be clear, right? So copy, paste, clear. View model launch arrow handler, reload use case, and this is clear use case. Yep. And next, somehow this function needs to be called from the button that doesn't exist yet, so we need a button, right? And there is no generic clear button, so we may need some icon for it, right? So let's see. For the reload button, I used some, let's see, launch your backgrounds, min map. Where this reload is coming from? Is it an icon or image somewhere? So let's open toolbar and see. So let's go to toolbar. Where is that? RestaurantsApp UI list top bar. Why the list top bar? On reload, scroll behavior. I also need on clear, right? On clear. And this is unit. And comma. List top bar on clear. And actions, icon, button, and this is icon. Icons fill it refresh. If I'm not lucky, I will have to create an icon from Android Studio, which is fine. But most likely there is some icon that is not refresh, something like clear. What about actions? Action, what is the scope of action? Composable infrared target, center line and top bar, composable. No, I want the scope of this, please. Material, composable infrared target, clear line, composable. It's a row scope. This is what I need, right? Because I want these icons to be in a row. This is what is actually goal, right? So I have an icon button for reload. I will also create icon button for the same way, icon button for clear. Blah, 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 blah. Copy, paste. Okay. Now this is not on reload, this is on clear. Icon button primary, it's a color. Icon fillet, I need this different piece. And string source, not refresh, and this is clear database, right? Or just say clear. Clear, right? Now let's extract string resource. And it is going into string resources. Right? Where did it go? You know about it, right? It went to string resources in values, strings, and this is what I just added. Okay. There is refresh, now there is also clear. Going back into the top bar, here, icon clear. If I leave it as it is, I will have two refresh buttons. I need to refresh. No, the two icons was the same icon. Right? I need something instead of it. Guess. There is a clear. I have no idea how it looks like, but there is a clear. Okay. All right, so let's, no, there is a cross. It so shows cross next to it. Yeah, so we're lucky. Also, it looks like close. It's kind of confusion in the corner. Okay, whatever. Check mark, clear, close. We can change order, so it will be here. But anyway, it looks like close. Okay, we can change order if it is look confusing. I mean, it's too confusing, like, close button in the corner, right? I will probably, to avoid this confusion, I will change the order. So cut and paste on top of it. So it will be clear, then reload. Otherwise, it indeed looks like closing the current screen, right? Now, if I reload, it should show up, but obviously it won't do anything. Maybe it won't compile. Let's see. Yeah, it didn't compile because when I was creating this top bar, I didn't provide what to call, right, on clear. And this is easy because I know how to reload. I put comma and do on clear. Okay, copy, paste, clear, and let's run it. And this is the one. It's a little kind of too much space right in between. I'm not even sure how to fix this issue because I didn't have any space in between them. I have just two icons. Maybe the best is just to have a drop-down menu with clean. With two items like reload and clear. Okay, by the way, it works. Okay, this is the point, it works. Yeah, reload, clear, reload, clear. Anyway, this is for debugging, so it doesn't have to look pretty. Okay. Ideally, maybe it's better to hide it in drop-down menu. But drop-down menu is definitely a lot of more work than we did. So now, yeah, it's kind of enjoyable. It's so pleasant when it works, right? And so frustrating when it doesn't. Okay. Yes. And by the way, reload shouldn't remove this one, obviously. But clear will. Obviously, it will clear database. So what did I do? Added clear button. Location sucks, honestly, right? Some space in between. Who knows who is causing this space? Let's think who is causing this space. I don't know what is causing this space. Because these two pieces are in row scope, there is no explicit gap in between. You see icon button and another icon. What made this scope, this space in between? I have no idea. Okay, let's leave it alone for now. Okay. Anyway, this button is for debugging. So it in final product anyway, it wouldn't be there. By the way, as a final product, it also sucks. What kind of product is that? It's essentially a demo. Okay. Anyway, it's definitely accomplishment, at least for debugging, right? So I will push it to GitHub. And obviously in your assignment, when assignment 4, we will ask you to implement loading data into database and displaying from the database, and also navigation to second screen. There is no what is my favorite picture. No, not like this. I'm not asking you to select favorite picture and store which one is favorite, because this would be too much. Right? Do it if you really want it somehow. I will push this to GitHub. Now we have about 15 minutes before I enter it. Commit. And it is a clear button. I will ask you to create clear button in assignment for sake of testing. Otherwise, it will be extremely hard to test. For you and for me when I grade it. So I will ask you to create clear button. And it doesn't matter if it looks ugly, because it's for testing. And it's the clear button, and I commit it to GitHub. So what was the plan besides what I said? Clear button, changing the scope of refresh. What else? What was else? To start, when application starts, it loads the list. It is refreshing the list. So I think I finished what I planned for it, right?